Welcome everybody to London Vegans. We're going to make a start for this evening's meeting. It's my great pleasure and great delight to introduce Dr. Ishani to our meeting this evening. I'm just going to read a little bit of bio. So Ishani is an NHS GP. She's an urgent care doctor. She's also now an author. I'm sure she's going to tell you about her book that's just come out. Her passions are animal rights and environmental advocacy, with a focus on protecting the protectors. In tonight's meeting, she's going to discuss compassion fatigue and simple techniques that we can all use to protect our mental health as vegans in a non-vegan world. So without further ado, let me pass over to Dr. Ishani. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Brian and Julie. I've been a part of London Vegans for years now, so it's such a privilege to be talking on your regular meetings. Thank you for having me. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Brian, can you see my screen?
Yes,
brilliant, perfect. So I'm going to be hosting a presentation for the next hour or so with a half an hour to chat and to answer any questions, or maybe to have a bit of a conversation about my favorite topic, which is vegan mental health. So I'm just actually going to start with a quick meditation. So I know we've all had really busy days. My mind's been really busy. I've been on the ambulance all day, and I'm currently at work in a small office space. So I know it's been really, really busy and really, really hectic for me. So while we're all sitting here, and while I am so grateful to have your attention, I'd like to practice what I preach, and to start with a quick meditation that I wrote for Animal Rising. And I've been doing this meditation for the last few years. And every time I do it, it brings me a sense of calm, just a sense of stillness. 5 minutes a day of meditation has been shown to rewire and connect the neurons in your brain between various areas in your brain on MRI machines. So I'm going to be holding a 2-minute meditation. Feel free to join me. If this isn't something that you feel comfortable with, then maybe you just go and pop the kettle on, or just join us, but you don't have to be fully immersed in the meditation if you don't want to. Okay, so take a deep breath in for 2 seconds and then hold for 4. Now close your eyes and breathe out for 8. Relax and notice your body releasing tension from your forehead, your neck, your shoulders, your arms, your hands, your stomach, your hips, your legs, your feet, and your toes. Anywhere that might store unnoticed and built up muscle stress. Feel the connection between the body and the space around you. Accept any warmth, any cold, any smells, or any sounds. Let the excitement and adrenaline of today fade away as you become grounded in this present moment. You are exactly where you need to be right now at this point in time. You've been focusing so hard on helping each other, on tasks and challenges, on helping the non-human animals and the planet. But it's time to bring your attention to your mind, to still your thoughts and to find a sense of calm. Focus again on your breathing with slow, deep waves that will naturally reduce your heart rate, your blood pressure, and your cortisol levels. Find gratitude and appreciation for all of the incredible things that your body and your brain does, for all of the difficult conversations, for the beautiful wildlife that we help, for the environment, and for the people that don't even know it yet. Bring yourself back to your breathing to allow yourself the calm that you deserve in this busy life. Promise yourself with each breath a little bit more time for you to find this calm again. Promise to approach challenges with fire, love, and laughter, and allow yourself to rest when you need to. I thank you for your incredible work as vegans and for joining me here today. And I invite you to open up your eyes whenever you feel ready. So, like I said, I love that meditation. I wrote it for Animal Rising. I think it's really, really, really important that we've all come here today to learn about a topic that is so important and about how we can best protect ourselves physically and mentally in a world that can sometimes be challenging. So a little bit about me. I'm an NHS GP, A&E doctor, urgent care doctor, and I cover the ambulances, but my passion is really animal rights activism. I've got a background in women's health, and I'm currently procrastinating massively on a master's in global health policy with a view to dismantling further animal agriculture. I'm a conservation dive master, so many of you might have seen my adventures when I go and look after the remote islands as the dive medic and dive master. I absolutely love it, and protecting the ocean is a huge passion of mine. And I have extensive training in psychiatric placement, psychiatric input for patients, and as a GP, I treat people with mental health issues every single day. A little bit about the organizations that I work with and work for. So if you don't know them, then please check out Protect the Wild. They're absolutely brilliant. They are a not-for-profit organization that aims to protect British wildlife, founded by the incredible Robert Pownall. You might have seen him in his campaigns to end fox hunting, badger culls. Now he's trying to end the cougar hunt, which is a horrific kind of hunt that goes on in Scotland, and they do a lot of policy work. So definitely check out and support Protect the Wild. I'm also running mental health sessions for activists for free, thanks to Rob, with the initiative Protect the Mind. So I've got some really great videos on YouTube and on the Protect the Wild website under Protect the Mind. So definitely check that out. Plant-based health professionals. I know so many people are disillusioned with their doctors, with medicine. It's really, really frustrating. I completely understand that there are doctors and healthcare professionals that do exist that also care about the planet and animals. So check out plant-based health professionals. They've got loads of amazing resources, a conference every year coming up in November called the Nutrition and Lifestyle Medicine Conference. And they've got so many cool fact sheets, which you can send out to patients or to relatives who might benefit from going vegan. So definitely check them out. And Buckets of Love is my baby, my little project. So it's a community project that I run with all my friends, flatmates, family, and we basically do really fun things to fundraise for good causes. So we've donated 3 wells to provide clean water to 3 villages in India. We do vegan wellness days and create sharing circles and safe spaces, but we also organize charity raves and skydiving and really fun things like that. So check us out. It's a really nice project to get involved with. And why food? So we know that food is fundamental to living. We know that veganism is such a brilliant choice for ourselves, for the animals, and for the planet. But I didn't know that when I chose to become a doctor. So I went vegetarian when I was 10. I asked my parents if I could stop eating animals from the age of 2, but I didn't really link everything together until I got to medical school. I worked on an eating disorders unit, so the highest secure eating disorders unit in the world at Bethlehem Hospital, which is the oldest psychiatric unit in the world, over 1,000 years old. I then went to Sri Lanka as part of my medical elective, and I did my global health project in Sri Lanka about disparity. And I looked at the reasoning as to why we have so much obesity in developed countries and we have so much poverty and famine in other countries. And I couldn't explain the calorie deficit or the calorie difference. I then was faced with huge issues with regards to food overconsumption in general practice. So we know that I think it's 1 in 4 children in the Western world are obese. Obesity and being overweight causes so many huge problems that I see every day in my medical practice, including heart disease, high cholesterol, obesity, joint pain, inflammatory conditions such as arthritis, cancers. And so many of these are linked to what people are eating. I then realized, after having grown up in Spain, that our current farming practices are so incredibly inefficient and that there is a step in the food chain which just doesn't make sense. Why are we feeding the calories to the animals when there are starving people in the world that need the calories and we're not feeding or diverting those calories to them? So all of it started to add up when I was 6 years in medical school, and I kind of started linking all of the dots from being vegetarian to then turning completely vegan overnight when I realized the horrors of the animal agriculture industry, not just on individual health and not just on animal health, but also on global health. Of course, my motivation to go vegan and stop eating animals was always for the animals. I think that most of us have such a strong sense of compassion, and I'm going to talk about that strong sense of compassion more. I think it's really interesting that we don't consider mental health to be a priority like we do physical health. Every day I'm asked to see patients that might have infections or might have high blood pressure, might have flare-ups of pain. But sometimes mental health is just swept under the rug, and it's something that's very, very stigmatized still. 1 in 4 people in the UK is diagnosed with a mental health problem. And I think that that number is substantially higher, because we know that the rates of anxiety, depression, OCD, schizophrenia, bipolar, personality disorders, psychosis, all of these things are monumental, and yet they go completely undiagnosed because people have difficulty accessing mental health services. Maybe people who are mentally unwell don't want to sit on the phone trying to get in touch with their GP. So I think that this number is significantly underrepresented, and I see issues with mental health where patients open up to me every single day. So it's a huge issue, and it should be prevented before it becomes too late. And then let's think about mental health specifically as vegans. So we've chosen to ostracize ourselves from mainstream community. We've chosen to make difficult decisions that might set us apart when we are sitting at the dinner table, or maybe when we're going to the shop to buy something, or maybe when we're choosing which restaurants to go to. So we've chosen to make our own lives harder to make the animals' lives easier. And that can come with a lot of struggles. So I just want you to think about some of the things that you really struggle with as a vegan in a non-vegan world yet. And maybe we'll talk about that in the Q&A and just address some specific things, or hopefully I do cover some of those things in the next 45 minutes to an hour. So like I said, in medical school, we deal with a lot of the things which are way down the line, and all of the kind of worst case scenarios that we've just let get worse and worse and worse till a patient needs medication, a patient needs statins, a patient needs antihypertensive, a patient needs chemotherapy, a patient needs open heart surgery. And we're not looking at all of these huge monumental things that we can do to prevent these issues from developing along the way. And that's why I really, really like to focus on burnout. Because I think burnout is a step towards recognizing all of the things that we can do to recognize maybe we're struggling with our mental health. Maybe we don't feel so well equipped to deal with the challenges of everyday life today. So burnout is something that I really, really love to talk about and really, really love to destigmatize, because it's a huge step in being able to recognize maybe the development of worsening mental health issues that might really, really be difficult to treat. So burnout, just some interesting things about burnout. I love this infographic. It says a lot, but so do I. Burnout was coined by an American psychotherapist called Freudenberg in the 1970s, where he was working in New York, and he noticed people who were caring, so volunteers who were caring for the homeless and drug addicted communities in New York. He noticed that they were completely burning out. Their spark was burning out, their energy was burning out. And he likened it to watching the homeless people sitting there with their cigarettes, just watching the spark in their cigarette burn out. So that's where that's where the phrase was coined. And I really, really love that, because often you do just see the spark burn out in people. You see that lack of motivation. You see that lack of energy, that lack of commitment. And that's something that I really want to prevent in all of us. I want you to keep your spark. I want you to keep your fire. I want you to keep burning within veganism. And so this is why I think it's really important to recognize what the development of burnout is and what that means to you as an individual. So what are some of the signs and symptoms? I think that we need to step towards personalized medicine. in the world, in the NHS, because I think that we're kind of doing a one size fits all kind of thing, and we're not really treating people as individuals. And that can be really difficult because everybody presents differently. If you just think about how one person might present with pain compared to another person, it's such a variable spectrum. So you need to really start thinking about what are the signs and symptoms that means for you. What does that mean for you if you think that, oh, I just really feel exhausted today, I'm not feeling so well? How does burnout and mental health affect you as an individual? So these are some of the signs and the symptoms of burnout. I'm not going to read them out, but I'm going to just highlight here that some of these symptoms can be physical. Okay, so we've got things like headaches, we've got things like chronic pain. Some of these issues can be physical. So there's a big overlap between the body and the brain, and we need to link those two, because I think in the Western world we treat them as two separate entities, but there's such a huge connection between our mind and our body. The other thing is that burnout should be a diagnosis of exclusion, which means that we need to rule everything out before we say, okay, I'm just burnt out. So this might mean blood tests. It might mean checking your vitamin D. It might mean checking your B12, checking your iron levels. It might mean getting a medical from a trusted healthcare professional before you just assume I'm burnt out. Let's make sure that there's no physical problems going on first. So what's compassion fatigue? Compassion fatigue is a special type of burnout. Burnout can affect everybody, right? Everybody has stresses with their health. Everybody has stresses with finances. Everybody has stresses with their family, with their work, with just general well-being. However, compassion fatigue is a special type of burnout that can affect demographics that are advocating for other causes. Okay, so there's loads and loads of different types of groups that will advocate for other causes. And these could be people that are trying to protect the environment. These could be people that are protecting trans rights, LGBT rights, maybe trying to dismantle racism or systematic injustices. So there's loads of different types of groups of people that can suffer from compassion fatigue. And I think that vegan compassion fatigue is such a new concept, because animal rights and animal justice is a relatively new field of social justice. So I think that this is a mental health kind of issue that should be really studied, and we should be focusing on vegan activists and people protecting animals, because we're doing so much to advocate for other creatures, other beings that so many people in society just don't understand about, don't care about, and that can be really, really stressful. So I put this study in here, which is a study from the Global Vegan Survey a few years ago. It looked at almost 13,000 people, and it showed that almost 2/3 of people decided to go vegan for the animals. And so I just think that's really lovely. Obviously, everybody has the health benefits. We all know that it affects the environment as well, which I think is hugely interlinked with animal health. But it just shows that people really care about the animals, and that means that we are naturally more compassionate. We are naturally caring for the animals. We naturally care about this group of beings which are often persecuted and often not supported in today's world. And that means that we are more likely to suffer from compassion fatigue. So I think that that comes as kind of a blessing, but also it can come with its struggles. So a little bit about why I developed an interest in burnout alongside becoming vegan was in 2017. I qualified as a junior doctor. I loved my time at medical school, but it was really hard. We were up doing 20-hour days sometimes, studying until 2 a.m., getting up at 6 a.m., going to the library, doing lectures. It was intense. Maybe if I hadn't partied so much, then it would have been less intense. However, history is history. And in 2017, I was really burnt out. And I was underweight and I wasn't feeling well. I wasn't feeling motivated. I was really tearful all the time. I was exhausted, or I was just had so much energy, and I just couldn't work out what was wrong. So I went to see a family friend who's a consultant endocrinologist, and he really humored me. And he, checked my thyroid, he checked my kidneys, he checked everything. And he said, "Have you ever thought that you might just be really, really exhausted?" And I thought, oh, hang on a second. maybe I am just really exhausted. And then I started learning about burnout. So 2017, 2018, I got through my junior doctor training. It was brutal. You will have all seen the junior doctor strikes. It's still brutal. In 2019, I decided to take a year out and go to live in the jungle in India, where I became an Ayurvedic consultant. And I chose to do that because I love the principle of Ayurveda, where we look at the fundamental pillars as to how we can protect our health from the development of disease. So we're looking at things like sleep. We're looking at things like what we're eating. We're looking at our mood, our relationships. We're looking at going outside, being part of nature. We're looking at all of these pillars, which are so important that I often think that we forget in Western medicine. And that leads me to today, where I have focused so much on self-care, care, burnout prevention, protecting myself so that I can protect my patients and protect my causes and protect the animals and protect people that protect the animals. And that brings me to today. And there's my Our Planet There's Two t-shirt from Nard. And I'm a very happy, healthy vegan activist. And I want to help everybody on that journey too. I think that activism was so important to me for developing a sense of purpose and a sense of need to say, I need to protect myself if I want to advocate for these causes. I need to look after myself. I need to start thinking about how I can feel better in the long run so that I don't burn out, so that I can continue to be an activist every single day of my life. I once asked Earthling Ed, how do you deal with the constant perception of climbing uphill or swimming upstream? And he said that you've just got to remember that this is a marathon and not a sprint. He said to me that you remember that there's always going to be causes that you want to fight for in your lifetime. We're not going to just dismantle animal agriculture overnight. There's always going to be things that you want to advocate for. So if we want to do that and be happy, healthy, successful activists, then we really, really need to start caring for ourselves. So activism really, really gave me a sense of purpose. It gave me a reason to look after myself. And I really want to dismantle the negative connotations around the word activist, because I think a lot of people imagine an activist to be a person that's like gluing themselves to things and shouting in microphones on the street and getting naked on the street. And yes, that is all of my friends. However, there are so many different types of activism and they're all super fun, right? So there's chalking at the top here. We've got people breaking into London Fashion Week. So that's one of my best friends, Molly. We've got Bav and all my friends here in Helen sitting doing peaceful demos in supermarkets. We've got people that go and show screens in Covent Garden. So we've got big groups of us that will go and stand, and it's so satisfying. And then we've got the radically kind lot in the bottom corner who just love to take their clothes off for activism and look really hot while doing so. So there's so many different forms of activism. We've got We the Free here, who are absolutely brilliant. You might have seen them on the high streets. They show footage to people in exchange for a prize, which is a really great incentive. We've got speciesism. So we've got art installations. You guys might have seen the milking herd installation, which we did in October, which was very, very cold and very, very striking. So we've got speciesism here. So there's loads of different types of art that will capture audiences and will allow you to participate with an activism, but while still making it fun. We've got Anonymous for the Voiceless here, who I have a really soft spot for. I've been part of Anonymous for the Voiceless for about 6-7 years. We go out, we hold the screens in Covent Garden, Leicester Square, Brixton, all over the UK. It's a really great community. We go out for a social afterwards. It's just such a brilliant thing to be part of. And I love being part of this activist community where you just feel you're so surrounded by people that care about the same things that you care about. You're surrounded by people that want to make the world better while having fun. And I absolutely love that. I love this photo of my friend Nav because he's such a gangster. Yeah, he's just so cute with the goats here. So we've got things like volunteering. You've got animal sanctuaries, litter picking walks, all different types of volunteering can be so good for your mental health, also your physical health, and also community. We've got music, so creating music or attending music. Don't know if anybody's got tickets to Moby in the summer, but I absolutely love Moby. We've got tickets to all the vegan festivals, vegan camp out, great vegan gathering, so much exciting music going on. So we've got Jen here, so please check out Vegan Queen V. She's absolutely incredible. Different theatre plays. So this is Patch Plays, which are an ethical theatre production company. They've got a play here called Blood on Your Hands, which is about the forgotten victims of the slaughterhouse industry, so the meat workers, and it's really, really good play. There's also a theatre, I think in Canterbury, called the Garland Theatre, which is fully vegan and shows really, really amazing, ethical, responsible shows, and is fully vegan in terms of the food that they serve. So theatre is an amazing source of activism. We've got cooking. Does anybody love to cook for people around them just to show them that we don't just eat grass? Cooking is, I think, the most important thing that we can do to try and show people that vegans aren't just weak and deficient and malnourished. So we've got Gaz Oakley here doing a cooking demo. We've got writing. So writing, this is an article I write for Vegan Food and Living magazine. I was so angry, just fuming during the pandemic when I was covering the COVID wards. I was the only COVID doctor overnight because nobody else wanted to do it, or they said they were too sick or do this. And I said, okay, well, I'll be the COVID doctor. So I was the COVID doctor for 2020. And I was so angry because I'd go to the supermarket and people were stockpiling meat. I need to stop saying meat. I think I'm going to just say dead animals. I need to correct myself on that one. So people were stockpiling dead animals. And it was really, really infuriating. So I wrote this article, and then I got really into writing. And I think writing poetry, writing anything, journaling can be so therapeutic for our mental health. I love to write. So how do you look after your mental health? So just have a think now. What are the things that you do to try and protect your mental health? How do we try and stay sane in a crazy world? How do we try and find peace in our own brains in a world that can be challenging? So what are the things that you do? I love this visual representation because it breaks it down into lots of fundamental pillars of self-care. So we've got physical, emotional, social, spiritual, personal, space, so your environment around you, financial, and work. So loads of different areas that you might want to focus on. And self-care looks different for everybody. So for example, somebody going to get a massage, that might be their idea of just complete relaxation, but somebody else might really feel uncomfortable with that. Or I go cold water swimming as a challenge to myself and to just give myself a rush of endorphins. But I know so many people can't even imagine the thought of swimming in 2 or 3 degree water. And then we've got things like exercise that might, look different for other people. We've got spiritual practices such as mindfulness, meditation, religion, and things like that. So everybody is really individual here. And what I want you to do is just pick a few areas that you feel like that would really make my life feel better, and just try a few different areas, a few different techniques, and just see if that brings some extra space and extra peace into your life. So there's a lot of emphasis on care, I think. But we don't really there's a lot of emphasis on self-care, but often I think we're so individualistic and so separate in today's community, and people can be very isolated. And I think that there's all this emphasis on self-care, and so many people are doing that, and that's great. But often I think that people forget to care. And I think that we really, really need to look out for people around us and just pick up on cues that might tell you that people are struggling. Maybe just ask them directly, or maybe if they haven't picked up the phone to you or made contact with you, then just reach out to people and just check in. If you feel like you can do, then maybe host an event like having a dinner, hosting sharing circles, even a potluck or something like that can be absolutely brilliant to build community. And I just want to talk about a book here. It's called Together by Vivek Murthy. He's the ex-Surgeon General of the United States. And so he didn't write his book about surgery. He didn't write it about politics. He didn't write it about the US of A. He wrote it about community, and it's called Together. And he talks about why community is so important. And you might know the WHO statistic that being isolated is the equivalent to your life expectancy of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And you can see why, when we're not supported, then so many things can just become a downward spiral. So I really want you to focus on the mental health of people around you as well. And the ways that we can do that, as per this lovely description, are stay in contact with people, support people, maybe support them with their daily tasks like cleaning or cooking, or just being there to help them with chores if they're finding it difficult, listening to people, active listening, and kind of like the Socratic approach of really just asking people and trying to delve into what people mean rather than thinking about what you're going to say already before you've even heard them through. encourage people to talk about how they're feeling and create safe spaces for it. Focus on things like exercise, well-being, stopping addictive behaviors, and maybe just like address those with people as well. Even difficult conversations are really, really beneficial to have. Don't judge people around you. If they're struggling, then just be a supportive person for them around them, especially if you know they're a vegan or they're an activist or somebody that you completely understand where they're coming from. Then just show that they're not alone in this. That can be really, really life-changing. And I love the fact that this ends on yourself, because you can't pour from an empty cup. You only have a limited number of spoons. I love that saying too. So you wake up with X amount of spoons and you use them throughout the day. So you've got to allocate your spoons well. Or one of my favorite things is when we used to go into the refugee camp, when I was volunteering in the refugee camp in Lesvos, in one of the biggest refugee camps in the world. Before we used to go into an emergency, or before there was a big problem in the refugee camp, the senior doctor would always say, who is the most important person in an emergency? And everybody would put their hands up and everybody would say me. So you need to look after yourself to be able to look after the people around you and other causes too. So this is something that I could probably talk about forever. In fact, I've written a book. Let's talk about the difficulties or the challenges that we might have when we're frustrated, maybe in activism, or maybe it's when we've sat down at the family dinner table, maybe it's a work meal or something that you can't get out of, where somebody has said something about veganism. So we all know the classic things, right? How many desert islands have you ended up on? How many of us have died of protein deficiency? How many of us don't get enough B12, right? We're all dead and living on an island and B12 deficient. So you get all of these stupid questions that you have to answer, right? We have to communicate with people in a healthy way. Often people don't know the answers to these questions, and often it took a kind answer to us that maybe switched our perspective. Maybe it was a person that pointed out something that was so incredibly obvious to us that made us make these incredible realizations. So a time that I often think about is when we're out on the street, we're doing activism, we're speaking to people, and there's somebody that really doesn't want to understand us, and maybe they're just being really abrasive. Often we have people that come and bring McDonald's and kind of like start eating it in front of us. So you've really got to learn to stay calm in these times where you feel like your blood pressure is rising, or you feel like your cheeks are flushing, right? These are all natural responses to anger. And so during these times, I want you to remember the things that are the same with that person. So maybe it will be a colleague at work who says, oh, I just can't live without cheese. And I say, okay, well, this person, they're still a doctor. They're still out there to help people. And I'm just going to try and focus on those similarities so that I don't get fired right now when I say what I really think. So we're going to have to remember our similarities, and we're going to have to remember to kind of like extend that empathy to people, because that's what empathy is often what brought us to this place. And so it's that empathy that we have to kind of remember in those times that we're feeling really frustrated, feeling angry, because those emotions don't do anything for us, and they don't do anything for the animals, and they don't do anything for our cause either. So it's about transforming those emotions, because they're all normal. Frustration is normal. Anger is normal. Sadness is normal. Grief is normal. All of these things are normal feelings, but I don't want these to sit with you. I want you to transform these things. I want you to transform them into creation, into passion, into motivation, into driving change. And that's when we have to play the game. Okay, maybe we'll tailor our conversation to our audience. Maybe we'll say, okay, well, right now I'm talking to a patient, so I have to be a little bit more kind of a little bit more patient with the way that I'm saying it, a little bit more focusing on your health. I'm going to have to play the game so I can put myself in this person's shoes to see what is going to be the driver for change here. How am I going to motivate behavior change in this person that probably doesn't even think about the animals, doesn't think about the environment, doesn't care about those things? How am I going to get through to that person in a way that resonates with them? And just remember that if you find that in a situation, maybe it's with a family member, maybe it's with a colleague, maybe it's out on the street doing activism, maybe it's with a loved one, maybe you're not getting anywhere and you just find that you're frustrated and that you're getting really, really worked up. it's completely okay to take a break and to walk away. Okay, there's no point in you pushing against a brick wall with anybody with regards to activism, with communication. In this point in your life, it's okay to just say, look, I need to just take a step back. I'm just going to go have a cup of tea. I'm just going to go for a walk. I'm just going to take a breath. Can we come back to this at a future point? I'd love to revisit this conversation with you at some point. I'd love to send you some resources. Can we come back to this? Because right now, I just need to take a little bit of time for me. And just remember, in those times where maybe you do feel angry, maybe you do feel isolated, remember how many people agree with us. Look how many people have jumped on this call on a midweek evening when you've got so many other things to do. Look how many faces turn up to Veg Fest, to Vegan Camp Out, to all of these amazing festivals. There are thousands and thousands and millions of us. So if you are feeling frustrated or isolated, or like you are not getting anywhere with your conversations or with your activism, then just join a Facebook group and just put your frustrations, just vent, just send a message to your vegan team, just go on WhatsApp and say, look, I'm feeling really annoyed right now. And everybody will say, oh my God, I feel you. I have that every day. I have that all the time. And it doesn't diminish it. It doesn't minimize it at all, but it just reminds you how many of us there are that are also fighting the same battle. And that is so incredibly important. So just some breathing techniques, because I love a bit of breath work. I don't like box breathing. Okay, I don't know if anybody does box breathing. So 4, 4, 4. I'm not going to get you to do it because it doesn't sit right with me. I feel a little bit hyperventilating, but some people really like it. So it's a 4, 4, 4, 4 pattern. So like a box where you do in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Some people really like it. I much prefer the 2, 4, 8. I absolutely love that. We did that at the beginning of the meditation. I love a 2, 4, 8 breath because it's really quick. It takes like how many seconds? I can't do math. It takes like however many seconds. And it's really great to stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest. So it opposes the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight, the adrenaline, the cortisol, the I'm going to run from this threat. My pupils are going to dilate. My blood flow is going to be diverted. So it is the opposite. The parasympathetic nervous system is the opposite of the stress response. And that is our chill. That is our blood pressure going down. That is our heart rate going down. That is our body is healing. That is our blood flow is being diverted to all of our, to our gut, to our brain, to all of our organs. And so I love this because taking that deep breath in, it resonates like a sigh. And a sigh is a fundamental respiratory requirement to inflate our alveoli so that oxygen transfer and carbon dioxide expelling can happen really efficiently. So that's why we sigh. That's why babies sigh. That's why it's kind of a physiological response. So let's just do this one together. So I absolutely love this. Let's just stimulate our parasympathetic nervous system and feel that sigh. Take a deep breath in through your nose for 2 seconds. Hold for 4. And out for 8. And then just breathe normally. Okay, so that's a really, really lovely technique. If you find that you are fine after that, you can do another one. If you find that you're a little bit breathless, then you can just take a break and then maybe come back to it. If you want to really stretch your lung capacity, then increase it to 12, 4, so 2, 4, 10 or 2, 4, 12. And if you're struggling with that, then just do 2, 4, 4 or 2, 4, 6. So you can really adapt it. I love that breath. And then we've got another really funny one. I really want to see everybody's faces. I'm going to have to try and watch it on the recording and see if I can see everybody's faces. But I'm not going to do that. Let's just everybody have a look at my stupid face. So let's do lion's breath, which is where you let's do the same. So it's a fundamental yogic practice that dates back thousands and thousands of years to the Vedas, where they really focused on breathing or pranayama, and put that in conjunction with movement as well. So lion's breath is a super fun one, and it's where you basically just breathe out. You breathe in and then you breathe out like a lion, and you stick your tongue out, because obviously we all know that lions do that, right? So you take a deep breath in, and let's do that. So you take a deep breath in, and then you breathe out through your mouth with your tongue out like a lion, and you make a really loud, stupid noise, and you go, like that. Okay, and that's a really, really good way. You might have done that in yoga, you might have done that in breathwork classes, and that's a really, really fun and stupid way. And we're going to do it again in a minute now that you're all experts at it. It's a really fun way of just being silly. And I think I really want to emphasize to you the importance of having fun and being silly as vegans and as vegan activists. It's always going to be challenging. We're always going to have things to do, but having fun and being silly is also really, really important. So now I just want you to let go of all of the tension in your body. I want you to let go of any kind of self-consciousness. It does not matter what you look like. We live once, and it is here. We're here to do good and have a good time. So I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose all the way, and then a big lion's breath out. So and you just feel better automatically, because I feel so ridiculous. And it was a really nice breath. And now I just want to talk about something that I absolutely love, which is the gardening that we do in our brains. So in my book, I've talked a little bit about why I think nurturing our brain and looking after our neuroplasticity and training our brains is equivalent to having a garden, right? We have to water it. We have to prune the areas that we don't want. We have to focus on the areas that we do want and keep coming back and checking and making sure that they're growing in the ways that we want to. Our brains are the same as our bodies, and we go to the gym. So why do we not do brain practices and give our brains the exercises that we need to cultivate that positive garden? So I love a gratitude practice. This has really changed my life. I think that shifting my perspective to see the positives has just been so fundamental in allowing me to just see the fun in things, see the positive sides in things, and just kind of enjoying the journey along the way. So I want you to focus now on 3 things, and just think of them as bullet points in your brain. Or maybe you've got a notepad, maybe you've got notes on your phone, and I just really want you to focus on 3 things that bring you joy. Maybe it's people, maybe it's activity, or a non-human animal, or maybe it's a concept, maybe it's a time that you had or an experience, maybe it's your job. I want you to really just focus on those 3 things now in bullet points, and just really feel that energy, feel that gratitude. Focus 1, 2, 3. And those 3 areas of your life that really, really bring you joy. Just feel that positivity, feel that gratitude, feel that love, feel that appreciation. Maybe you want to reach out after this and tell people. Maybe you want to write this down and just start cultivating gratitude practice into your everyday habits. I would recommend maybe when you're waiting for the kettle to boil, maybe when you're in the shower, or maybe when you're waiting for a timer to go off or something. I would recommend really consciously adding that time into these gratitude practices, because it can change your natural predisposition to be a more positive one, which can only be a good thing. And just briefly, I'm going to tell you the tale of 2 wolves, because I think it's really lovely. I had it written down, but I lost it. So I'm going to have to just improvise a bit on the tale of 2 wolves, but I think it's a really lovely story. So an old Indian chief is sitting around the campfire with his family members and with his tribe. And he tells everybody a story, and he says, inside all of you, there are 2 wolves. There is the wolf that is light. There is the wolf that is filled with love and positivity and patience and gratitude and compassion and generosity. So we have that wolf on one side, and then we have the other wolf and the opposite wolf to that. So we have greed and grief and negativity and jealousy and anger and resentment. And inside of you, those two wolves are always having a fight. And then the chief's grandson says, Grandpa, I can feel the wolves inside of me having a fight, and I can feel that they're there all of the time. But what I want to know is which wolf wins. And maybe you know what the chief said. And if you do know, then you'll understand why I think this story is really important. And so the chief says, well, of course, grandson, the wolf that wins is the one you feed. So we all have these emotions, and it's part of being human to have the positive and the negative emotions. And I never want to diminish the negative emotions. There's a place for them within us and within activism and within creating passion and motivation and drive. But I think that we need to really focus on all of the positive emotions, because ultimately we are in control of our own brains, and that is what we can control. What helps my mental health? So I love listening to podcasts. I literally listen to hours and hours of podcasts every single day. And Rich Roll, who's a vegan activist and an ultra endurance athlete, has changed my life. He's got such a compassionate, intriguing, excellent way of communicating with people. And I just absolutely love hearing about all of the things that people on his podcast talk about. We've got the Food Revolution Network with Ocean Robbins as well. It's just incredible and really reiterates that we are on the right path in our path of activism in our vegan choices. Prioritizing self-care, it becomes a habit, right? At first, it's really hard to say, where am I going to find half an hour a day to go to the gym? How am I going to meal prep when I'm so busy? How am I going to add in another thing? I don't want you to add in another thing. You already have far too much to do. I want you to make it more efficient what you're doing. I want you to use that 10 minutes where we sit around on our phones. I want you to use that to do 10 minutes of yoga, 10 minutes of breath work, call somebody that you care about, stick some veggies in the oven so that you've got vegetables to add to your food for the next few days. I want you to make your life more streamlined and more efficient so that you can minimize everything that you have to do and feel better at the same time. Community is so important to me. Having my friends, having my family around me, my vegan activist community, and knowing that I'm part of this incredible, motivating, beautiful tribe, it is fundamental in motivating me to do the work that I do. I could not express more gratitude for the people that support me and that I can reach out to on the days that might not be so sunny. Looking after your gut-brain axis. So easily having your 7 of your 5 a day, it just changes the way that you feel. You become addicted to vegetables rather than junk food. And I will just show you a little graph about why that's so important now. Staying up to date with science. So this is one where I think it helps my mental health, and it helps me to basically overcome burnout, because you cannot lose an argument with a non-vegan. There is no possible way that they will be able to argue with you when you know all of the science, all of the facts, all of the figures, all of the data, where to find the points. Oxford University studies, all of the big Harvard studies. So I absolutely love staying up to date with science and with resources, because it's just so satisfying when you just outdo a non-vegan in activism or an argument. And cutting my losses. So being able to take a step back and to say, I can't do that right now. I can't continue with this friendship. I can't continue with this project. And just being happy with that in yourself, taking a break, whether that's short or a long break, and just saying, this is my boundary. This is what I need to do. That does not serve me anymore. And being completely fine with that. That is fine. And that's something that often people feel uncomfortable with, but saying no should be empowering. So I couldn't do a presentation without telling you some of my secrets. So these are some of the things that I have presented to the Royal College of GPs, to the BBC, to Parliament. And these are some of the studies which are ignored by the mainstream media. Okay, these are the studies that current modern medicine does not want you to know. These are the studies that the animal agriculture industry does not want you to know. So this is a study that looked at Seventh-day Adventists, who are the only blue zone in the United States, in Loma Linda. This is a study that followed them over 60 years, and it looks at 153,000 participants who were stratified into vegan, vegetarian, and omnivores. Right, the Loma Linda Seventh-day Adventists are the coolest population to study. They make scientists' life a dream because they don't drink, they don't smoke, they all exercise, they all live in this tiny pocket of a blue zone in the States. So they're really, really easy to compare because all of these other variables, external variables, are not there. The main variable that we had in this population was their food choices. So it was really, really easy to account for other variables to say, actually, this is fundamentally because of what they're choosing to eat. And they found that the vegan cohort had a 6-year life expectancy increase compared to the vegetarians, even longer compared to the omnivores. We found a 60% reduction in type 2 diabetes, significantly lower risk of high blood pressure, heart disease, and of course, a lower BMI. So this is a huge study looking at over 150,000 people over 60 years, which just showed that there is an outrageous increase in life expectancy, 6 to 8 years in those that are choosing to follow a vegan diet. Now, this one is really cool because I love psychiatry. I've done loads of studies. I've done loads of kind of like work experience and volunteering and placements and all sorts. I was the only junior doctor in the UK to be able to take 2 psychiatric placements because I thought I wanted to be a psychiatrist. And then I decided actually this is not prevention. So I love psychiatry. And this was one of the first papers that I saw in the Journal of Translational Psychiatry, which is just a psychiatric journal, but it's a huge one with high impact. And this one actually is called The Effects of Plant-Based Diets on the Body and the Brain. So it's the first paper that actually looks at the beneficial effects of going vegan on our mental health and on the development of psychiatric conditions. And it's really, really cool because we know about the gut-brain axis. We know that 90% of our serotonin is produced in the gut, yet we don't really know how that translates into our mental health and the development of psychiatric conditions. However, we do know that people that followed a plant-based diet have reduced risk of psychiatric illness. They also developed reduced burnout during COVID. And we also have better health markers, and there's a better link between the microbiome and so the immune system as well. And there's this link between the serotonin in the gut and the brain. So this is really cool because it means that psychiatric journals and mental health institutions are now thinking about how we can use plant-based diets to protect ourselves from the development of psychiatric conditions and disease. If anybody doesn't know our world in data, then they are such an amazing bank of graphs and resources, right? We know all of this stuff. We know that going vegan saves a huge amount of water, saves a huge amount of land use, saves a huge amount of feed and calories. We know this. However, it is just fantastic to have this in a graph. I think that we must have somebody on the inside working for our world in data, because today they released something about dairy emissions. Literally today, a few hours ago, they put on their Facebook and Instagram about the huge emissions from the dairy industry. So I think that there's somebody vegan on the inside in our world in data, and they do often reference Joseph Poor, who works for Oxford University. His papers are just incredible, and he again makes these amazing graphs. So this one's brilliant if you want to kind of just direct people to the cold hard facts. So at the bottom here, we've got greenhouse gas emissions for different food types and different ingredients. So at the bottom, we've got nuts, citrus fruits, vegetables, bananas, peas, soy milk, maize, tomatoes, wheat, rye, cane sugar. Then at the top, we've got beef, lamb, cheese, chocolate, coffee, prawns, palm oil, pig, poultry, olive oil, fish, eggs. So you can see this is like predominantly animal products that are at the top producing the most emissions, which is obviously the length of the graph. However, what I thought was really interesting was that this is subdivided then into the different areas where the emissions happen. And as you can see, right, avocados, almonds, they all get a bad reputation, right? We vegans are single-handedly ruining the planet because I ate an avocado last week for lunch. I know. However, if we look at the emissions from this, which is the transport, retail, packaging, that's red, yellow, and grey, right? I can't even see that on the top ingredients. So predominantly we've got land use and farming and animal feed, which contributes to what, about 90%, maybe 95% of the emissions from all of those ingredients. So when somebody turns around to you and says, actually, it's the transport from your avocado, you can turn around and say, well, actually, from this study from Oxford University by Joseph Poor, who's a biologist, from Our World in Data, we can see that actually it is the land use, farming, and the animal feed and the type of ingredients, which is predominantly animal products, that is contributing to immense climate change and deforestation, not the avocado that you choose to have on your toast once a week. And I love this paper because this is my favorite paper, and it really made me cry when I read it. And I really recommend that you go and read it. It's called the title is at the bottom, Overcoming Vegan Activist Burnout, Mass Gatherings Can Rekindle Shared Identity and Activism Efforts in Minority Groups. I love this paper. I'm not going to go into it hugely. It's about the benefits of community and the benefits of going to vegan events on protecting our mental health. Two things about this paper. One is that it uses the term moralized to describe us, which is just gorgeous because I've never heard that. I've only heard the word demoralized, but it refers to us as a moralized community, which I love. And also, completely ironically, when I was presenting this at Vegan Camp Out, I had put hundreds and hundreds of people in the audience, and I was presenting this at my mental health talk at Vegan Camp Out, I think last year, and I was talking about the benefits of community and connection. And after I presented this paper, the lead author, Anaya Prosser, came up to me and gave me a hug, and she said, "That's my paper, and do you want to collaborate, and do you want to stay in touch?" So I just thought it was really, really like just such serendipity. But definitely read that paper. It's really uplifting, really nice, and it's quite an easy read as well. So community, right? I've told you about the book Together. I've told you about the paper, which talks about why we should be going to vegan events, why we need to reach out. And I've talked about the benefits of community on our mental health. Sometimes we can feel so isolated on this journey. Sometimes you might feel like you are the only vegan in the office. You're the only vegan in the village. One of my friends says, the only veg in the village, they say. But you're not alone. There's so many of us, and we're all working together in our own little ways. And they're so different, whether it's cooking or writing or policy or supporting events or hosting amazing talks like this one in London Vegans. So there's so many of us, and we are working together. And if you've seen how the collaborative nature of ants works, you have one ant, you have two ants, and the exponential strength of ants just goes up. So we are growing. The numbers of vegans are growing. It went from 1% to 2% to 3% to 4% on a recent survey last year from Finder. 4% of the UK population says that they are vegan. I anticipate that this number is only going to grow as we learn about the horrific implications of animal agriculture, not just to the animals, but on the environment and on our health. And I do believe that we are doing this together. So just look around, just remember that you are part of a community. It's such a special, strong community to be part of. It's empowering, it's motivating, and we are in this together, and we are going far. So is it possible? Of course, you guys who know me, who've been to my talks, know that I love to end on a positive note. We know that there are, 15 universities now that have pledged to go 100% plant-based, including Cambridge University, Birmingham University, Imperial College London, UCL, Think Imperial's just gone, Southampton the other day, literally 2 days ago, Southampton University, Bristol, Kent, University of Kent. So this is really, really exciting. The smart kids are doing it. We can do it. Let's just keep pushing. We've got all of these amazing organizations which are doing plant-based treaties, plant-based councils. We've got LA, Edinburgh, Lambeth. We've got all of these different areas which have pledged to go completely vegan, or at least to transition towards a whole food plant-based food system. We've got the 11 New York public hospitals under Mayor Eric Adams who have gone completely vegan, and satisfaction of meals has gone up. We've got meat and dairy farms and restaurants and businesses which are transitioning to veganism and eliminating animal products from their menus and from their stock lists because they realize that this is not a sustainable industry to be part of. Not only is it not sustainable, it is not ethical, it is immoral. I do compare it to slavery. We've got people that are realizing this and that are making the transitions and making the changes. It is happening. So I created an album called One Person Won't Make a Difference, said 8 million people. And when I feel like my lovely vegan community need a little bit of a boost, then I add all of these plant-based wins. We've got the search terms for veganism on Just Eat. We've got the plant-based universities, treaties, councils. We've got Amsterdam. Is it not Amsterdam that's just banned adverts for meat? We've got Palitana, which has just completely made meat illegal, a state in Gujarat. We've got huge organizations like Wimbledon and the tennis that are going plant-based and serving vegan options. The Royal College of GPs at not this year's talk, I think last year's, went fully vegan with pressure from some of plant-based health professionals. So it's really, really exciting. And there are so many wins. And I just want to remind you that we might not see change today. We might not see change tomorrow. I hope that we do, and I hope that we are. But if you feel frustrated and you feel like we are not getting anywhere, then just remember this quote, which I think is just incredibly beautiful. The one who plants trees knowing that he or she will never sit in their shade has at least started to understand the meaning of life. I don't think that that needs any explanation. You guys are all smart, kind people. However, I just want to remind you that we do this for the future. We do this for future generations. We do this for the children. We do this for the animals. If you ever feel like this is futile or that we're not getting anywhere, just remember that change never happened overnight. Remember that social justice movements took a lot of time and took a lot of pushing. And I do believe that one day that tipping point will happen and we are on the right side of history as we do that. So upcoming events, I've got some really exciting things coming up. If you're around Bristol, I've got a book launch next week, next Thursday in Vegan India. So just drop me a message or just find details through my website. I've got book launch in Birmingham coming up after I go volunteering. Talking at VegFest in June, Rooted Festival in Oxford in June, Great Vegan Gathering in August, Vegan Retreat later in the year. I think that's August, September, or October. I can't remember. And I've got my retreats coming up, which I'm really, really happy to tell you about. So I have started hosting the most beautiful, precious weeks with vegan activists. They're all open. They'll be open to vegans as well, or people that are interested in just becoming more active in the scene. I've got one coming up the 6th to the 14th of June, and I've got 4 places left. So I'm really, really looking. They've all been sold out. They've all been oversubscribed. I imagine this one will sell out as well. That is a picture of our villa, under Spacious Villa on the poster. That's an actual picture of the villa, and it is just so incredibly beautiful. And here are photos on the right of our last retreat. We go kayaking, we go hiking, we do yoga, we do acupuncture, art therapy, and there is a little snake that we found on our hike. Absolutely gorgeous. So really exciting week. We've seen a lot of dolphins, a lot of just wildlife out and about. It's been really, really beautiful. And so I've got 4 spaces for 4 lucky people. So do message me if you want to book on to my retreat in June. And let's just end on my book, which is my project, which I've been working on for intermittently about 2 years now. It is specifically meant for vegan activists to protect ourselves from burnout and from the development of kind of unhealthy coping strategies. So I've got loads of really easy, manageable tips in there that we can do and implement into our everyday lives just to protect ourselves, so that we can really advocate for our causes. You can buy it on Etsy. It is not available on Amazon because Amazon sucks. It is printed with vegan ink on recycled paper. So that's been really hard for me to navigate, because that's not something that people will really think about. So I've had to really put in a lot of thought and effort into that. And I'm also donating 10% of profits to animal rights charities, and I've published with the Vegan Publisher. So any support that I can get for this book, then I'd love to get this project out there. It really has been my focus for the last 2 years, and I've put in a lot of things that I think will resonate with you if you've turned up to this talk today. Thank you so very much for listening. My website is drishani.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram. Please follow me on Instagram, because apparently that's a thing that people care about. And when people ask me to put my Instagram links to sign up to talks and events and stuff like that, apparently that's the thing that people look at. But do drop me a message if I can help you with anything. You've got any ideas, suggestions, feedback, I welcome with difficulty. But I am always here if anybody needs any advice, support, or resources. So I think we have time now for a Q&A. So I'm just going to come out of my screen, and I've got some time to chat to anybody that wants to for the next 20 minutes, half an hour.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Ishani. It was fantastic. I said there were a couple of questions that came up in advance. So if I read them out, first one was, how do we protect our mental health from the constant distress of seeing the cruelty when we're posting on the internet or sharing to help raise awareness about the truth and horrors that go on daily? And even in shops, where we're faced with animal products and in the cafes, etc. I think there's two things there. One is particularly the internet and social media, and the other is sort of go about our general day-to-day life.
Yes, the internet and social media, there's a chapter in my book about this, because I found it really difficult as well to be just constantly bombarded with like heavy pictures and negative stuff and politics and all of these things that I care so deeply about, but I'm trying my best. And so I decided to just kind of get rid of all news sources, get rid of everything on social media that made me feel heavy. And I've really filled up, and I spent an evening just curating my social media so that it's full of vegan recipes, veg news, loads of different positive things, gardening groups, DIY, inspirational quotes, fashion stuff, secondhand fashion stuff, and just all this fun stuff, natural swimming pools and ponds and stuff. So I spent the whole evening just spending hours curating my social media, Instagram, Facebook, etc., so that it was filled with things that would bring me joy. And then if you do want to send these things and send these videos, maybe don't watch them if you feel like you're already doing enough. Like, I feel like I tell people to watch Dominion and Seaspiracy and stuff like that, but do I watch them? No, because they really distress me and they really upset me. So I think just really curating your social media to something that is positive, fills you with joy, inspires you, and you can always go out and find things if you need to. That's what's helped me. And then going into supermarkets and things like that, I find it really, really hard. I find it really distressing. I do have stickers, which I stick on things, which is maybe or maybe not illegal. Have I just incriminated myself? I don't know. I do have stickers, which I stick on things. Lots of my friends have QR codes, which link to Dominion and things like that. Mine do say, go vegan to prevent future pandemics, and then just not your mom, not your milk, things like that. I'll stick those on things. That really gives me satisfaction, just sticking them in the supermarket. I don't do that. Somebody else does that isn't me. Somebody else does that. I don't do that, but somebody else might do that. And also I shop online. So I do shop online. There's the Vegetarian Express, which is amazing. You can do your online deliveries from Asda and stuff like that. Your favorites will come up. You can kind of do a shop and just avoid going to the supermarkets if that triggers you, because I absolutely hate it. I only go if necessary. But yeah, shopping from the Vegetarian Express, and also shopping online, and also using the supermarkets as activism if you do need to go. I find that all very useful.
Do you, let me ask a question. Do you avoid interacting with non-vegan posts where somebody is posting something that would be, let's supposing it's, pro-meat or pro-animal experimentation? Would you get involved in that discussion online, or will you stay clear to avoid confrontation?
Oh, I'm what they call a keyboard warrior. I love to write. I love to type. I love my social media. I absolutely love my social media. I'm probably one of the few people that loves their Facebook, loves their Instagram, because it's just so full of things that I want it to be full of. But Facebook, you do see the comments that come up when you don't really want to see them. But I think that, if I see what 20 patients, 30 patients a day I could see, but I could put a post on Facebook which might reach thousands of people. I feel like I always put a post, but it doesn't come at a cost to me. I find it quite enjoyable. I love putting the cold hard facts there. I love putting the irrefutable science. I get a kick out of it. So I find that if it's not benefiting you, don't do it. And if you find that you're capable and you have enough spoons to do that, then go for it, then do it. It's really important.
Yeah, thank you. The other question was, or comment was, I'd like to hear some pointers of what sort of activism is most helpful to the movement while preserving our own mental health. I think you may have covered some of that already. Then it goes on. For example, in the past, I participated in the Animal Rights March, but I felt the experience charged my emotions and left me drained. I also felt unsure if it was helpful, since the media disregards it and it's of no interest to the as if it's no interest to the public, and I'm not sure if it gathers sympathy from passers-by. So it may sound accusatory, angry, perhaps antagonist. And I then decided just to make monthly donations to support organisations. I mean, that's what the using your money that you're earning to help organisations rather than directly being involved with those organisations.
I think you've answered your own question, right? We need to do
Yeah,
what feels best for us. Because as long as you're acting from a position of compassion, and you're making decisions that are not harmful, then I think it's completely fine to do what feels good for you
yeah,
and what makes you happy, right? We're all vegans. We're all here to protect the animals. And if some days you don't want to go to a march or you find that overwhelming, then do something else. Go for coffee with a friend in a vegan place, donate, read something, write something, share something. There are so many forms of activism and they should be enjoyable for you. I want this to be fun. I don't want this to feel like a chore. I don't want this to feel like it's burning you out. For me, going to the Animal Rights March, I mean, I speak there, right? I hosted a speech at National Animal Rights Day last year. I've got Bristol Animal Rights March coming up in the summer. For me, it's like such an incredible occasion to see how many people care, and to see how many people turn up, and to see my friends, and to, just like let go of some of that like anger and tension and stuff like that. And so I don't think too much about the external implications of that. I just do what feels right to me on the day. And sometimes I might not be able to go to the protest because I don't have it in me. So maybe I'll do something else. Maybe I'll cook a meal for a friend. Maybe I'll watch a documentary. Maybe I'll read something. Maybe I will just take a bath. It doesn't matter as long as you're doing what feels right for you. Then there is no right way to do activism. There's a form of activism for everybody. And what that means to us might change on a day-to-day basis as well.
I think we're all different on what I call the emotional scale. So some people are quite hardened and they can look at pictures and images, and even if animals are being transported sadly to abattoirs, and they're hardened, they get used to it, and others they really they find they are affected by it. And I think for those it's probably important not to engage, but it's knowing your limit really. And I remember when you spoke at the Christmas fair, there was a gentleman that was saying that he would not be, if he's having a meal, he would not sit at the same table as somebody who was eating meat or chicken or an animal product, which I thought was interesting because I mean, I can sort of switch off to that. I mean, I accept that, I don't, in other words, they're eating something, I'm not happy with them eating it. But for me, I can switch off and say, well, I'm not eating it. Whereas for that person, they're seeing it as the animal and they don't want to be part of that, and therefore they won't sit at the same table.
I won't be around it, and that's my boundary.
Yeah. So it's having your own boundaries. Absolutely.
And that's a huge reason that I went into general practice. I can eat lunch on my own terms. When we're out on the ambulance, I get to say, can we stop at that vegan place? For me, there's a boundary that I will uphold. I'm more than happy to go out on the street and to do activism and to shout. So it's literally just figuring out where you are comfortable within activism and within making your own life easier and more pleasant.
I'll do add a couple of things onto what you've already said, if I may. One is there's a little story in the book by I think it's Stephen Covey, which is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Individuals. And there's a story I like to give to my own clients now and again, and it's about sharpening the saw. And the story of a woodcutter, master woodcutter, who each day goes into the wood and cutting down the trees, not environmentally friendly, but cutting down the trees. And on this particular day, he has an apprentice with him, and he teaches the apprentice what to do in terms of cutting the trees. And at the end of the day, the master woodcutter's cut however many trees, and the apprentice hasn't cut that many at all. And the apprentice looks at the master woodcutter and says, I noticed during the day, well, first of all, you've cut a lot of trees down, but you seem to be sitting down part of the day and taking lots of rests. And yet I've been working full out throughout the whole day, and yet you've cut down more trees than me. Why is that? And the master woodcutter says, well, when I'm sitting down, what I'm doing is I'm sharpening my saw. And I think it's a great story to say that you can't just go full out, because you may end up burning out, as you were saying earlier, and it's taking time for yourself and having some rest.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
about, I love that analogy. I love that that story, because it's true. We need the right tools to be effective.
Absolutely.
And we're not looking at these fundamental pillars and really investing in ourselves, then we can't do our causes, whether that's our patients or our volunteering or our family or our friends around us. We can't do them justice. So this is why I think self-care and looking after ourselves should be the first principle.
Yeah. The other thing is, this is from a course I went on, nothing to do with animal rights, but it was to do with hypnotherapy and allied therapy. And there's a gentleman called Dr. David Muss, who came up with a technique called a rewind technique, specifically for people with post-traumatic stress disorder. And he categorizes two forms of PTSD. One is where you are the victim. In other words, if you're in a road accident or something like that. And the other type is where you witness something. And I think for the animal rights movement, particularly, it's often witnessing something where you can then get traumatized by it. And if you do a search for rewind technique, Dr. David Muss, there's a little exercise that he does online you can watch, and you can go through a little process. That may be helpful.
Brilliant. I also have 4 videos which I've done for Protect the Wild, and
Yeah.
one of them is about managing trauma, because I do
Yes.
the trauma management for Animal Rising. So these are
Yeah.
often people that have gone
Fantastic.
into investigations and things like that. Maybe they've been hunt sabs as well. So I do a lot of the mental health work with hunt saboteurs. So people that go in and intercept the hunt. I do a lot of the work with people that have gone into horrible conditions and still repeatedly go into them to try and get footage and to dismantle animal agriculture laws and stuff like that. And something that I found really interesting is one of my old flatmates. He said to me, he's a brilliant animal rights activist, but really burnt out, really depressed. And I'll come home, and just in passing, I'll say, something like, oh, I lost a patient today, or a child died, or, he'll ask me how my day was. And I don't really complain about it. I'm not complaining. I think it's an honor and a privilege to be doing the job that I do. And he says to me, well, people will say to me, how do you cope, right? You're losing children, you're doing all of this stuff. Like, I've had to leave my house in Spain before because of wildfires. So that was way closer than I thought it would be. And as a climate activist, that was absolutely heartbreaking. And seeing my forest, my walk, my mountain burn down, it was heartbreaking and traumatic. And people say to me, how do you manage that? How do you always come back with a smile? How do you always, how do you not burn out? And I say to them, I had to think about it. I had to really think about it. And I think that this is happening anyway. This is going to happen anyway. Animal agriculture, people eating animals, people abusing the climate and the planet. This is happening anyway. And I have been put in this position at this point in time to be able to help that. I can help the animals. I can save animals by not eating them. I can go and volunteer for environmental organizations and for vegan charities and look after my patients. And we have been put in this place in time where we have this role to fill, where we can help. And I think for me, that is so incredibly motivating, is knowing that it's going to happen anyway. And if I didn't do anything, the situation would be so much worse. But I am doing something, and you are doing something, and we are making these decisions to help. And for me, that brings me such inner peace, that I think that is such a big coping strategy with all of the traumatic things that we go through. We're helping. And for me, that's enough.
Thank you. I've got one this is a final question because we're way over our time. But Jeannie wrote, I feel like sometimes we animal activists blame ourselves or feel guilty if we look away, even just temporarily, to protect ourselves. Can you speak to that and say thank you for your activism? I love your style, she said.
Yeah, so I've got a video for Protect the Wild. I think it's maybe the second one, and it's about setting your boundaries and about not being guilty. Like, this seems to be a huge thing which keeps coming up recurrently in activism, whether that's animal rights activism or even, like, say you work with patients, there's always more to do. There's always another person to see. You never switch off, or if you don't let yourself, there's a chance to never switch off. But we need to feel empowered with saying no, setting our boundaries, taking that time to reset, because we know that we're going to be coming back more proactive, more efficient, more motivated, more driven, more creative, right? When we take breaks and when we sleep, or when we go on holiday, or when we go and relax with our friends or family, we come back feeling less like it's a chore and more like it's a privilege and a pleasure. So I think that to be able to do yourself justice, but also the cause and the animals and your community, then I think that we really need to learn to retrain our brains to say, this is part of activism. Taking a break, stepping back, it's not taking a break from activism. It should be part of activism. And I think that's really important in reframing how we speak to ourselves. How would you speak to a friend? How would you speak to somebody that you love? Would you tell them to go and take a break if they're feeling tired? You would. So I want your inner voice to speak to yourself the same way that you would speak to somebody that you love and say, go and take that break, go and rest, and come back, and we'll do this even harder.
Absolutely. Thank you ever so much, Ishani, for talking to us today. For those watching on YouTube, the links to her book and to the websites will be down below in the comment section. Thank you, everybody, for participating and joining us for this evening's meeting. And just say a big thank you again. Round of applause for... I said you'll be on mute. Okay. Let me stop the recording.